Okay, so at NJIT, actually, sorry, I'm going to turn off my video for now just to conserve some bandwidth. So at NJIT, we have the Center for Community Systems, and our main focus is brownfields. We have two brownfields programs. The top one is NJ Brownfields Assistance Center at NJIT, and this is the first of its kind and only center that serves just New Jersey communities. We have kind of unique environment here, some unique regulatory issues and funding opportunities. So it deserves its own attention. We're funded through the NJEDA and our affiliate partners for that program. And we have a second program, the NJIT Technical Assistance to Brownfields Communities program. This is EPA funded, and we serve region 2 and 4. So that's New York, New Jersey, Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, and the southeastern states. Our websites are up here. And through these programs, we provide assistance through either one-on-one meetings. We have resources on our websites that are constantly getting updated, and we do educational forums such as this. Again, my name is Kaylin Bruno. This is my contact information if you want to get in touch with me after this meeting. We at NJIT, we have a multidisciplinary staff here. So I'm a professional geologist. I'm also a licensed site remediation professional, but we also have planners, civil engineers, and others on our team. So before we get into what resources are available and the funding, let's all get on the same page about what a brownfield is. So we have two definitions here. The first is through EPA. It's the real property, the expansion, redevelopment, or reuse of which may be complicated by the presence or potential presence of a hazardous substance, pollutant, or contaminant. And in New Jersey, our definition is similar. We do have a little bit more specific language. We say it's any former or current commercial or industrial site that is currently vacant or underutilized and on which there has been or there is suspected to have been a discharge of a contaminant. So a brownfield can look obvious to you, like some of the pictures on the right. It could look like an old factory or gas station, you know, immediately it's a brownfield, or it could look like an empty green field. It could even look like a forest. But if there's something in that property's past use that makes us suspect that there could be contamination and it's vacant, it's a brownfield. And we got here through the Industrial Revolution, all the conveniences that we enjoy today. It's the legacy of that. So modernizing of our manufacturing techniques, textile processing, leather processing, refining of petroleum products, manufacturing chemicals. A lot of these produced hazardous waste, which was just dumped wherever was convenient. But not all brownfields are centuries or decades old. They could be as old as yesterday. So a gas station that went out of business, that's a brownfield. Or same thing with a dry cleaner. So any commercial property that could handle, store, or produce hazardous waste could be a brownfield. Again, keeping in mind that definition, vacant or underutilized. So if the gas station was operational, it could have leaky tanks. That would definitely be an environmental issue, but it's not a brownfield if the gas station is still in business. Brownfields can also be contaminated just by virtue of the building material that they are comprised of. So here we're talking about asbestos containing materials, lead paint, maybe some PCBs, that sort of thing. And so we say that cleanup and redevelopment of brownfields are key ingredients to creating economically, environmentally, and socially equitable communities because these sites can be transformed into community needed uses. They can um, be transformed into businesses that create jobs or diversify the economy of a community, contribute to the tax base. Whatever a community needs, a brownfields can help, a brownfield redevelopment project can help address that need. And this is my last slide here before I tee it up for Melissa. This is the title says it's a New Jersey brownfields regulatory process, but this is actually the process that all contaminated sites in New Jersey go through. The goal at the end is to get your response action outcome. But in order to do that, you will need an LSRP to kind of usher you through all these other steps. So before you get to the cleanup phase, your remedial action, you need to make sure that you know everything about the site, if there's contamination, how far it extends, how deep it goes, how bad it is, what it's made of, and all that is done through the first three steps, which is preliminary assessment, your site investigation, and remedial investigation. So that's it for me. Now I'll hand it over to Melissa to talk about how you can fund each of these steps because of course each of these come at a cost, but we do have resources available to use, mostly through the EDA. So go ahead, Melissa.
Thanks, Caitlin. I'm gonna share my slides. Give me 1 minute. So let me take care of that. So as Caitlin said, my name is Melissa Dunsky. I'm a team lead here at NJEDA. So I work in the Brownfields and Sustainable Systems team. I work in a larger community development group, so we take care of lots of different things here. So if there's anything that you probably could be or interested in looking into, the EDA probably has something for you. We cover small business services, historic preservation, planning grants, asset activation. We have a cannabis program. We have so much stuff going on here at EDA. So if you're interested in any of that, please check out the website. But for today, I'm going to talk specifically about our Brownfields Planning and Assessment Services. So we have various programs and initiatives happening around brownfields here at EDA. I've listed them here on the slide for you. I'll just very briefly cover the ones that are below the main topic for today. So Brownfields Impact Fund. The Brownfields Impact Fund is a revolving loan fund grant. So if you're familiar with EPA grants, that's a revolving loan fund grant that we receive from the EPA. So we're very happy to have this program. It can fund cleanup and remediation of brownfield sites. We have low interest loans that are available.
Hey, Melissa.
Mhm.
I'm just seeing your title slide, the first
Oh,
one.
okay. I did advance it. So maybe there's something else happening here. Give me 1 second. So you're not seeing it advance?
No.
Okay. Let me stop and see what I can do to make that work. Or if you want to pull it up in the meantime, just to see if we can get it to advance so everyone can see my slides.
Yeah.
How about now?
No, I'm still just seeing the title slide.
Hmm.
Do you want to stop sharing and then I can share for you? You could
Yes.
just tell me.
Yes, let me stop sharing.
Okay, sorry about
Thank
that,
you. No,
everybody.
think everyone's used to it at this point. Nothing goes perfect. So,
Yeah.
so the Brownfields Impact Fund, again, we have low interest loans available up to 350K for the remediation of brownfield sites. We've really built that with the Brownfields practitioner in mind. So you've got a 20-year term, you have no payments for the first 4 years and no prepayment penalty under that. The Brownfields Redevelopment Incentive Program, a new program. We just launched that last week. Very happy to have that available. It's a tax credit program that can reimburse developers up to 60% of their remediation costs. It's a very well-funded program, and you can get up to $8 million depending on the site location. And it also includes demolition, which is something that we'll talk about later in this presentation as well. And finally, I would say our banner program, our longest standing program here at EDA, and probably well known to most of the people in attendance today, is the Hazardous Discharge Site Remediation Fund, fondly known as HDSRF. So that is jointly administered by EDA and NJEDA, so they take care of the technical aspects and we take care of the financial aspects. You can find all of these programs on our website. So that is listed here. That's NJEDA/community revitalization. And if you're interested in receiving emails from us, you can email that email address at the bottom and be added to our mailing list. We'll be having different webinars and different outreach as we develop our programs and continue to bring new brownfields funding to New Jersey. Next slide, please, Caitlin. So I'll give you a little background if you're not super familiar with the EPA process and how that works. So back in October of 2020, NJEDA applied for a $300,000 EPA assessment grant. We were awarded that in May, and then we entered into the cooperative agreement a year later in October 2021. So it does take some time to get through the process and enter into that agreement with EPA. So if you've ever completed an EPA application, you know you have to come to them with a plan of how you're going to spend the money, a plan of sites that you could possibly use the money to assess, investigate, and do planning for. So we worked with our counterparts at the DEP in the Community Collaborative Initiative Program, and we named some different sites that were in those communities in our application. So the first thing that we did was go back to those communities and ask them, are these sites still viable? Are there any other sites that you might want to use this funding for? Additionally, we took requests on a first come, first served basis, and that was all through the expression of interest form that was available on our website. And I'll show you the website in a minute. It's pretty simple, straightforward. So we took in those expression of interest forms as well as worked with our CCI partners, and we were able to obligate all of that funding. So we're in the process right now of doing some of those projects. We've finished some. I'll walk you through them a little bit so you can see how the funding can be used. It doesn't all have to be phase ones. There's lots of different ways that we can work with the EPA and get different types of projects funded through this grant. Next slide, Caitlin, please. So basically this is working really well. We're really happy with the progress that we've made on this. So we decided to go back to the EPA for more. So we applied for a $2 million assessment grant in November 2021 that was only available to states and tribes. So at the EDA, our jurisdiction is the entire state of New Jersey. So we're able to serve a very large constituency. We were made aware that we would receive that grant in May of 2022, and then we entered into our cooperative agreement. Just 2 weeks ago, I presented at the NJEDA Board meeting to give them an understanding of this initiative and how we were going to go about doing this, and as well as recommend firms that would be able to provide professional environmental services under this funding source. So those firms are listed here. They are still pending the governor's veto period. So the governor has the right to veto. I don't believe that he would do that. And then there was also going to be a 10-day protest period here. So these are just board approved. We still have to go through the public procurement process to finish this out. And as anyone who's ever been through a public procurement process knows, that takes time. So I appreciate people's patience as we get through that process in order to be able to make these assessment services more widely available. Next slide, please. So just to recap a little bit, we EDA have a grant from the US EPA. So we're not making sub-grants out of that grant. We are instead providing professional environmental services with that funding from EPA. So it's basically a really good way for us to connect sites, so brownfield sites that you have or your community might have, with people that can provide those services. So it's really going to be like a matching up process that we go through after you nominate a site. So why we think that this is important and why we think it's a good setup and a good program, it really streamlines the process for you as individual entities, communities, counties, nonprofits. You do not have to go through that procurement process yourself. We at EDA have taken care of that. We've gone through that. We've done all the public procurement requirements, advertising, evaluation committee, board approval. You don't have to approve any invoices. So the invoices come to me as the designated grant manager. I approve the invoices. I take care of that with the vendor. You receive the services. So just to make sure that that's clear for everyone, there won't be money exchanging hands between the EDA and the entity receiving the services. It will just be the EDA handling that procurement process on your behalf. Next slide, please. So there's lots of eligible activities that are available under this grant. And I really appreciate EPA's help. We've, you know, we want to provide all of these different types of services to communities in New Jersey. So those can be phase ones, PAs, SIs, RIs, RAWPs, hazardous material surveys, which I've received a lot of interest on that. I know that HGSRF does not cover that. That's something that people are really interested in receiving, as well as the planning services. So again, something that people are really interested in receiving funding for. That can be community meetings, that can be brownfields inventories, that can be site reuse plans. So as you all know, each brownfield is different, each entity is different. So the services that you need will be tailor-made to your brownfield site and your, potential redevelopment. There's no designated redevelopment that has to be done under this grant. So it can be open space, it can be recreation, it can be commercial. So there's no designated end use that comes along with this money. Next slide, please, Caitlin. So I'll just walk you through a few different communities that we've been able to help with that first grant. So the $300,000 grant, Perth Amboy, what we ended up doing was preparing a permit application on their behalf, submitting it to DEP and having it approved. We're able to conduct some additional RI work that they needed done. So that included soil characterization, sampling, as well as well repairs. And the Perth Amboy Redevelopment Agency is currently working with a designated redeveloper for the redevelopment of the site. And I just want to thank NJEDA again. Perth Amboy did a presentation back, I think it was in January, of breaking brownfields, and it really spurred a lot of interest in the site, and they were able to find a designated redeveloper to come on. So it's really building, like we're always building on top of things. They had some work done, they needed more work done. We were able to use the funding to complete what they needed to be done in order to get into conversations with the designated redeveloper. Next slide, please. Bridgeton's another fantastic site that I'm very happy we were able to help them with. They have a landfill, obviously from this picture you can tell that this is a landfill. It's in a really great recreational area. It's just fenced off. Nobody really goes on it except to sample. So we said, what if we helped you with a community revitalization plan to bring this landfill into the mixture with the rest of the recreational use in the surrounding area? They really were not sure what to do with this site. They had some ideas kind of floating around, but what we were able to do is really focus them on making sure that they held their public meetings, they got their public input. They were able to use all of that to create a conceptual design for them, as well as put together some maps and some different things to help them apply for new funding sources. So very, very, very proud to say that they've been able to leverage the work that we've done with our Brownfields money. They got a local recreation grant from the DCA, and I also got word last week that they received another grant. So they're really catapulting themselves using what we did under the Brownfields planning for them and pulling that information to be really well prepared to go in for new grant applications. Next slide, please. And then just a few more communities that we've been able to help with this grant. So Bayonne, we're doing a preliminary assessment at a former industrial property. Camden, we've done some data gap summaries, some ABGAs, and some remedial action cost estimates for them as they prepare to go after more grants themselves. And then Patterson, we've done a remediation strategy, community relations plan. As they start this brownfield project, they need to reach out to the community, explain what's happening. We've also been able to complete a property survey and boundary for them and help them estimate the existing soil piles that need to be removed, as well as gave them a really great base map to start off with. Next slide, please. So this is a web page that I talked about earlier. It's pretty straightforward and simple. It explains where this funding source came from. It gives you our designated email address here. So that's going to be bfassessment@njeda.com. The expression of interest form can be downloaded here. And of course, you can reach out to me with any questions as you go through the expression of interest form. But it is quite simple, and I have tried to keep it as high level as possible for people. Next slide, please. So it's just a 2-page form, very straightforward. Asks you some very baseline information. If you don't understand what services you're requesting, you can certainly leave that section blank. You can just give us an explanation of what you're trying to do with the site, and we'll take it from there. We'll really work with you to figure out what you need. As long as you can provide us some information about the site, the ownership, any history that you might have. Once you send that in to us, we're going to take it from there. So like I said, the one grant is fully obligated, and then we're working towards the new grant. So I am in that procurement process. So I'm trying to build up a pipeline of projects. That's why I'm here for today to talk to you, really trying to build up that pipeline of projects that we can use the funding for. Next slide, please. So some site and entity eligibility, as with all programs. There's going to be some different eligibility requirements. So municipalities, counties, redevelopment agencies, nonprofits, and private parties are all eligible to nominate sites under this initiative. So once you submit that expression of interest form to EDA, we're going to work with our partners over at EPA just to verify that the site and the proposed activities that you want to do are eligible. They're going to give us a green light. As Caitlin explained earlier, there are 2 definitions of brownfield. So under this program, we're using the EPA's definition of a brownfield, which I've listed here again for you. I know that can be a little bit confusing, but the definition of the brownfield is following the funding source. So that's why we're using EPA's definition. Next slide, please. So once we've confirmed with EPA that your scope of work is good, your brownfield site is good, we are going to ask you to enter into 2 different agreements with us. So there's going to be the first one, which is a property owner's agreement. So that's going to be between the property owner. So whoever legally owns that property and between NJEDA, you're going to release us from liability. So that's something that you'll want to review and go over, as well as if the property is owned by a private party, we'll need the municipality or municipalities to also sign a release of claims against EDA. And finally, one of our vendors will need an access agreement. So this legally allows their team and staff to access that property to perform any on-site services. Next slide, please. So I just want to recap. We really do need sites. So I'm really here to ask you to bring forth sites, to nominate sites, to come talk to us about brownfield sites that you have. They will allow me to do this as long as we continue to spend the money, as long as we continue to use these funds wisely in New Jersey. So again, I appreciate my partners at EPA who constantly are here for me and help me as a grantee. This is a free service. So I just want to make sure that everyone understands that there's no application fee, there's no commitment. You can fill out that expression of interest form at any time. We really want as many sites to come in, so both public and privately owned sites are going to be eligible to receive the services. We can do lots of different things, as I explained earlier, in Perth Amboy, Bridgeton. Those are two very different scopes of work. You know, you're talking about field work versus planning. So we can do the whole gamut. As long as EPA is okay with what we're doing, we can do it. So please just fill out an expression of interest form if you have a site. If you want to talk some more about what we can do under the grant, I'd be happy to take those questions from you now. Or you can feel free to reach out. I think my information is on the next slide. So yep, there's my email address there. Caitlin, of course, has my information if anyone needed it. But yeah, we would be happy to take questions now, and well as if you had anything specifically that you want to talk about site-wise, I'd be happy to have that conversation with you offline. But that's it for me.
Thanks, Melissa. Those are like some really great examples. We do have about 2 minutes for some questions. If you have them, please put them in the Q&A box. And I did just want to mention too that the NJIT, the New Jersey Brownfields Assistance Center, we can help you with the application. So if you're thinking, you know, I'm not really sure if we're ready for this, or I don't know, you know, if any work has been done on the site, what previous reports, we can help you pull all that together, help you put together a nice information package for your expression of interest and help facilitate those conversations with the EDA. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions come through. I don't want to leave everyone hanging. You have our information. Please reach out. And I'd just like to thank you, Melissa, for taking the time this morning.
There is one question I
Sure.
just saw come through the chat, and it is something that I do want to address, is that so the LSRP program, right? So there's like a marrying up of federal and state things that are happening here, right? We are in the state of New Jersey, the brownfield sites are in the state of New Jersey. If you're going through the LSRP process, we can work together with your LSRP. So there can be two separate contracts happening at the same time. And we've done this for Perth Amboy. So Perth Amboy has a designated LSRP for the site. They approve what we're submitting to the DP. They approve the sampling plan. They approve the scope of work. So we're really working together. The city has their contract with their LSRP, and we provide professional services with the LSRP's approval. So that's really a good marrying up of how things can continue to work. So we're not asking people to abandon their LSRP. We're not asking people to change their LSRP. As long as the entity, whoever it is, the county, the redevelopment agency, continues to have a contract with the environmental consultant, LSRP, they can continue to do their piece of it. And then they can approve sampling plans, any analysis that needs to be done, any permits that need to go in. So those two things kind of act separately. And we do appreciate the cities because they're buying into the process, right? Like they're part of the process with us. And we're really working as a team. So we're not here to, you know, take sites from people. We're really here to reinvigorate sites that have maybe gotten a little stale. So in Perth Amboy's case, they just needed more money. They just needed some more funds in order to reinvigorate the site. And that was an important way that we could work as partners. So really, we want to be partners with the existing team that's already working on the site and just use some of this federal funding to kick things off, maybe that have sat around for a few years a little bit too long.
Great.
Thanks, Mary Kay, for that question too.
Yeah,
I
great
appreciate
question.
it.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, thanks everyone again. Again, this recording will be on our website, so you can revisit, share, and get those sites, those forms out to the EDA.
Thank you. Thanks
Thank
for everyone
you.
for joining. Have a good one.